the nitty gritty. I left my job because I knew that I needed to become the person I'm supposed to be.
I can flip the script in my life too and choose confidence and not be so fear-based.
I always like to look at confidence. I say confidence is something that you don't have to work for. It's what you get to be.
You come into my life and you bring so much and have, you're an inspired artist.
And I felt that with you because you actually reached out to me. And I said, no, this is someone special. I know that I have experienced the grief recovery that you do. So I'm just grateful that we have people like you out there doing this because it's so needed. I love that analogy. I'm personally guilty of living in dreams and actually a lot of ideas.
Learning to be sensitive in a time of frustration, learning to be confident in a time of frustration, learn to be kind to yourself.
We're all born, right, with these, we have unique heartbeats. We have a unique fingerprint. There's obviously an imprint that each of us are supposed to leave and have here in this world.
Make it a great day because y'all know y'all can. Enjoy your weekend. Hey, y'all. How's everybody doing? You guys good out there? Okay, first of all, if you guys can hear me, I want you to put a yes in the comments because we were having some technical difficulties with this mic. So I just want to make sure everybody hears me out there. Happy Friday to y'all. Happy Friday. Y'all, I am super excited because I have my guy over here with me, Mr. Johnny D. How you doing, John?
I'm good. I'm ready to roll.
So, y'all, we really wanted, so thank you, Naomi. Naomi says yes. So, y'all, we wanted to have this conversation tonight just to have a relationship talk. Yeah. Are you good? You down for a relationship talk?
Yes.
Yes. So John has been he's been on the show with me before, right? Yes. You've been on the show with me before, but the last time he was on the show was completely different from what we're going to do tonight. Yeah. What we're going to do tonight is very exciting. And let me make sure I'm in the frame. Goodness gracious. Okay. Is that better?
Yeah. Now we're
Yes. Okay, great. So John has been on the show before, but this time we just want to talk about relationships because you guys, there's so many components to a relationship. I mean, there's relationships, parent relationships, there's husband and wife relationships, there's children and parents relationships, there's co-worker relationships. I mean, everywhere you go, you're going to come across some kind of relationship. Mm-hmm. Some of them you're going to have because you want to, and some of them you're going to have because you have to. And that's like a coworker. You're working with somebody, so you kind of have to be around this person and probably have to communicate with them if you're doing a project together. But John and I are married. We've been married 25 years. 25 years, y'all. And these 25 years there's been some amazing moments in these 25 years. I mean, completely incredible.
And very recently.
Very recently, right?
Yes.
And then there's been some can you explain those, John?
Train wrecks, some conflicts, avalanches, blizzards,
storms.
storms, yeah.
All of it.
All of that.
But you know what? We've survived them, right? Yeah. We're still here.
We are still surviving, still moving forward and overcoming. Yeah.
Yes. That kind of brings me to what I want to talk about tonight because you're talking about overcoming and still here and surviving. Sometimes in relationships that it is a survival. Sometimes in relationship it is overcoming. Basically pushing through. You mentioned that, just moving forward. And so I wanted to talk about commitment tonight because I believe commitment is something that it's not only for if you're in a relationship with someone, but it's also to yourself. Don't you think? What are your thoughts about that? Like committing in a relationship and committing to yourself.
Okay. So I looked it up before we went on just to make sure I knew what the definition of commit is. And the origin of the word actually means it's two words from Latin, com and mit, which basically means with and like sending,
Mm,
like mission, right?
mm,
So it's kind of interesting when we think of committing or commitment, we think of like being steady in a place, but actually the original idea when the word was developed, it meant to be going with someone, someone you're
mm,
sending out, you're going with someone. So that's what commitment really is. It's going along with somebody on a mission, really. And then if you think of committing to yourself, what that would mean is that you are looking out for your own well-being so that you have the strength, the reserves, the character, just the internal mechanism that can actually help somebody else on the mission. So
mm.
you're stabilizing, you're committing to your own well-being so that you can bring something to that commitment with another person.
I like that, babe.
Yeah.
So, like, what I hear you saying is that the relationship aspect is kind of like the mission. You're
Yes.
going on a mission together,
Yes.
shall I say?
Yes.
Going on something together. I love how you
Hmm.
said come with.
Come with. It's
Come
like
with.
sending with. That's sort of what it means.
Mm,
Sending with. Imagine each of us has been sent out on whatever mission that God gave us, right, in our own lives.
yeah.
Everybody's different, but we're not actually, when we're committed to somebody, we're going with that person on their mission and vice versa.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's rich. They People don't teach that.
Oh, okay. I you know, I,
You just learning. I'm just learning it for the first time. You
I
sharing
just
that
got it
with
a few
me.
minutes ago because I looked it up in the dictionary. I'm like, okay, well, let me see what it says. Like, what's the origin of it? Like, oh, well, okay, well, that kind of makes sense because you think of like the Great Commission, right?
Yeah.
From a Christian perspective, we have a Great Commission. What are we committing to? Oh, it's going out and spreading the gospel, the good news,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the commission. But then it's the same root word as the word commitment that we use in a relationship with another person.
Mm.
Yes.
Oh, I like that. That's worth exploring a little bit deeper. So in essence, like you and I, like we've been committed to each other for 25 plus years
Yes.
and continuing to keep moving forward and growing and changing and learning. One of the things that I love about what you shared, come with, going with, is that I don't think in relationships. So I think it probably starts out like that. Like there's a desire. I know
Yeah.
when we first got married,
Yeah.
it was like, "Hey, I'm ready. I want to do this.
Yeah.
This guy is my boo, and we gonna take over the world together, right?" But then
Yes.
there comes the challenges, and where it gets a little janky, right? There comes the
Yes.
challenges. It gets janky,
Yes.
and you actually almost are not even thinking about the commitment part, the vow that you made when you
Hmm.
got married, or and if you're in any relationship, the commitment that you said you're going to be
Hmm.
there. Um, when you have those challenges and when things get a little stinky in the relationship, I mean, I know for me, I'm not thinking about my commitment in those moments. I'm thinking about my feelings.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my feelings and
Hmm.
what's happening. And hey, if he's is he gonna hear what I'm trying to say? I'm thinking about me in those moments.
Hmm.
And what you're saying here with come with, feelings is not the priority to be focusing on. If you're
No.
in a situation,
No.
like even in a challenge, there comes a time you have to redivert yourself, like reroute almost,
Yeah.
like not get so much into your feelings. I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I know that you and I
Hmm.
did a little video and we were talking about feelings. I wanted to
Yeah.
talk about that, like when we're talking about having an interaction that doesn't sit right with us. Like, for example,
Yeah.
what would you say something that has happened between us that hasn't sit right and it's like a feeling situation?
um, well, there are times when you ask me what I'm doing or what I'm thinking, just I know that's kind of silly, and maybe I'm just in a mood or whatever, or I don't feel like talking. I can start getting defensive in the sense of like, what are you probing for, right? What are you asking for? I mean, and I have a, I'm way too much in my head anyway. I think way too much, and I catastrophize a lot. So if something strikes me the wrong way for whatever reason, I can go pretty far south pretty fast in my emotions, and I get like, there was actually, this was one thing you said something to me. We're doing a house remodeling project,
Yes,
right? We're
yes.
doing a number of things on the house, and you made a comment to me that like I felt like the feeling that I got is like hurt because I'm like, she's making fun of me, like I'm not taking care of business, and so that's where my feelings went to a place that was not functional. And then we talked about it, fortunately, and I was able to ask questions, and then you were able to explain exactly what the comment was. And I was able to then perceive, like, okay, well, it may not be something that I wanted to hear. Maybe she didn't say it in a way that I necessarily would have said, made that comment. But I can understand that it's not coming from some negative place. It's not like you're not making fun of me, right? I felt like, and so that's where feelings get in the way when you get something going on inside that may or may not be directly related to reality, what the other person is trying to communicate with you. And it's very, for me, I don't know about people out there, but for me, it is hard to discern sometimes because the feelings rise up. They may direct me to something that I felt in the past, right?
Yeah.
And I may be misinterpreting things, or feeling things unnecessarily instead of just sort of letting things roll, like the water off the duck's back. I don't, I'm learning how to do that as well, but it's not always easy for
Thank you for sharing that. And I have experienced that defensiveness when you feel that.
me.
It's so interesting because I definitely can relate. So you're not the only
Mhm.
one that has this, like what I call as a reaction instead of responding. And
Yes.
that's something that I wanted to just share with the people that are watching. One thing that I've learned, in reference to our relationship when it is gets a little fuzzy, is that I have been prone to reacting instead of responding. So even just with what you were sharing,
Mhm.
a lot of times I can feel that energy and feel, you may not even tell me like what are you probing me for, but your energy, I can sense it and I can feel it. And so
Mhm.
what ends up happening is in the past I've went into my feelings
Mhm.
and reacted to yours. So I don't know if you guys out there can relate in a
Mhm.
sense of relationships. You're basically kind of absorbing each other's energy. And that happens a lot in relationships, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a dating, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a coworker situation. When stuff gets janky and fuzzy, we tend to react to each other versus remembering our commitment to each other.
Yes, if you're reacting, you're in a place where you're basically, at least temporarily, abandoning the commitment because you're
Mm,
not going with somebody, right?
mm,
If commitment really means going with somebody, if I'm getting stuck in my feeling and that becomes more important than going with you, then
wow.
I've taken a break from the commitment, so to say,
Wow.
or yeah, I've broken with it. And if I have a like an overarching perception of commitment, it's like no, I got off the path. I have to come back, and it's hard because it requires humility and self awareness to say, all right, I'm not really on the path. We're not together, and my feeling is funky, but I have to somehow get out of that feeling. I got to get back to the right thinking brain here. I got to get
Yeah.
back to the responsible brain, responsive to the reactive. When I think of reaction, I think of, action, reaction like this.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a tennis match.
Yeah.
Bam, bam. Now a response would be more like I catch the ball, right?
Mm,
Hold it for a second, and then I figure out where I'm going to throw it.
that's good.
That's more of a response than a reaction. And a healthy relationship is less like a tennis match and more like a game of catch, really, or a
Mm,
baseball game where we're working together. I catch the fly and I throw it to you for you to catch it and do the next action in the game.
Oh, I like that. Oh, now y'all, I wish. Thank you for sharing that, babe. I wish I could tell you guys that that's how it works in our household. Like there's
Yeah,
a
on the regular.
yeah on the regular. I wish we could say that, but we just being honest tonight, and we're gonna be real because
Yeah.
we're not trying to play games about who we are, and we're not trying to pretend and be something that we're not. We're constantly growing. We're constantly learning, and what I appreciate what you shared because these some of the don'ts in the relationship because I know that I wanted to talk about because I feel like we are experts in the don'ts. And we're growing to become experts in the do's. So the whole concept of reacting and responding has been a real thing where we've had to really figure out. Like the reaction is the don't, the response is the do.
Yes.
So if you're listening out there, a reaction is a don't and a response is a do. Because when you are reacting to people, you are caught up in their vibe. You may have had a great, your day may have it started off great. And then all of a sudden you have this interaction with somebody and then you absorb all of them. And then you find yourself, your day is not great anymore. It happens that quick. And y'all know.
Can I comment on that?
Go for it.
I learned something. I was in here's the transparency moment. I was in a program last year where I was getting help. I needed help to really sort through my feelings. So I was in a therapeutic program for a while. And I think it was the very last day that I was in there, one of the counselors that I was working with was talking to me about something that are called mirror neurons. Okay. Now, neurons are, your sort of your brain activity. I wish I knew what the definition is, but it has something to do with your brain. But a mirror neuron is something where we have a capacity in our brain to mirror somebody else, right? Right. And so we actually do feed off of people's energy.
Yeah.
We do feed off. And so really the idea of, understanding that you have mirror neurons helps you like, okay, by nature, I'm in tune with other people. My brain is wired in such a way that I do feed off of other people. Now, the question is whether or not my mirror neurons are going to govern me or I'm going to govern them. So am I going to learn how to get my brain waves going, my neurons working for me? So if I'm experiencing a feeling because of you or whoever I'm interacting with, it's a question of, all right, well, can I slow myself down enough? Can I slow the mechanism down enough so that the mirror neurons can point me in a healthy direction instead of riling up my emotions? And I felt a lot in my life that I have allowed. I didn't know what was going on a lot of times. I could feel it. I could feel it physiologically, like things going on in my mind that affect my feelings. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Why does this happen? But now I know where it comes from. So now that I know that, I have the opportunity to say, all right, I can slow it down. I know what my brain is doing here. It wants to pull me into some sort of unhealthy emotional interaction or reaction. Instead, I can stop and say, I breathe. I got to slow down. If I can slow down enough to let those neurons stop firing so furiously, then I can actually be responsive.
But that's I really really appreciate that when what you said about the mirroring because it's so important to really pay attention to that mirror. One of the things that what you were talking about is like when I know for me, like what you were sharing is if you can work on you and like you're aware, that was really powerful because you're aware and you're present that something's going on inside of me. And I think that that's what happens in a lot of relationship. We're not being present with what's going on inside of us and taking a pause. It's so much of the experience that we're having with the person, in our case, the experience with each other, that the experience, we're getting so caught up in our feelings in the experience versus paying attention to what is actually happening inside of us and going, oh, is this healthy?
Yeah.
what's happening right here? Am I coming with, like what you talked about
Yeah.
earlier, the commitment in the relationship? Am I coming with him in a healthy way, or am I coming with him in a way that builds the relationship? Because you're talking about, when you're saying being, you notice, hey, something's going on. Like at that time, I know for me, watching what's going on, I need to go back to, okay, Chantel, what is your commitment to yourself for how you want to behave in a relationship? That's another point. What commitment have you made to yourself of how you're going to interact with your spouse or interact with this person
Mhm.
over here? What is your commitment to yourself? And one of the things I want to share with y'all that I've been doing is I've been writing in a gratitude journal because it keeps me. I'm almost at my year too doing that. Yes.
Good thing.
It really has helped me with my commitment to myself, and it's also helped me with my commitment to you and our relationship,
Mhm.
with my relationship with our children, with my relationship with other people. Because when I stop and look and reflect on what I'm grateful for, when I start writing every single night what I'm grateful for, I get to observe what has happened in that day.
Mhm.
And it keeps me with my word that I have for myself this year is peace. It keeps me at peace because I go back and I'm like, oh, this happened today. This was good. And no matter if there was an interaction that wasn't so great for
Mhm.
us, I can still go back and find something that was. That for me strengthens a commitment in a relationship. When you can
Mhm.
go back and you can kind of observe what happened that was good for you in that day, you get to see the relationships and the interactions that you're having. Also, reflecting on paying attention to what you said, how, what's happening here? What's happening here? So, y'all that are listening, have you ever considered like stopping and taking a pause and going, what's happening? Have you ever asked yourself, put some comments in the chat, yes, no. Have you ever just like in an interaction in a relationship, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a friend, whether it's a coworker, whether it's somebody in a community that you're part of, have you stopped and taken a pause and said, let me see what's happening here for yourself? Anybody, just put it in the chat. That is something that I believe for any relationship or any human being has to take place in order for you to have great commitments. Would you say?
That you are aware of
Like
what's
being
going.
aware of
Yeah.
what's going on with
Yes.
yourself.
Yes.
It
Absolutely. Because you're going to end up, if you don't develop the awareness, then as you're talking, I'm thinking this idea that you're going to end up stuck in a very immature
mm,
place
pattern.
in a
Yeah, it's
pattern,
a
right?
pattern.
And I think, at least for me, and I bet for a lot of people, what happens in our lives is that we come out of the womb and we're children,
Hmm.
right? And we're all emotion, right? We're all we're
We come
and
out crying
we come out crying,
sometimes.
and
Wow.
we're all emotion, and the emotion communicates to the parent. The
Yeah.
baby needs something, and as
Yeah.
the kid gets older, that usually kind of the emotions calm down, but still it takes a while to work things out over time. But unless we develop and are trained over time to really get a good handle on our emotions in our youth, we enter adulthood with these broken areas, right?
Mm,
The Bible calls them anxiety. In the Greek, the word for anxiety is merimna, which means broken pieces. So we
mm,
have these broken pieces inside of ourselves that are either unhealed, unparented, or immature, whatever, and they don't function well. They bring us back. They drag us back into our childishness, and I've done a lot of that. I often, as an adult, I often felt like, man, I feel there are parts of me that are like a young teenager, and
mm.
I'm like, I'm an older man now. I'm like, what in the world? Why is it that I have this? And I think if I reflect back, I'm like, there are just things that as I was growing up that emotionally I didn't work out, that I didn't get a grip on. I didn't understand. I didn't have the terminology, or maybe I didn't know about it. I certainly didn't know about mirror neurons until recently. So
Yeah.
I didn't know about it. And it took a while. It's taking a while to like, all right, it's like reprogramming. Like if you get a computer that,
Yeah.
something gets messed up on the computer, you have to take it, they got to debug it, right? And they got to reprogram it so that it functions correctly. And for human beings, we're complicated because we grow, we change. We
Yeah.
change physically.
With
We
experiences.
have experiences. We grow physiologically. We grow cognitively. We're changing
Yeah.
all the time, and we have different wants and needs over the course of our life, and we have to be in tune with these things. But what happens again if we don't mature over time, if we don't deal with the stuff that's happened or the things where we haven't matured, then it's gonna trail us, and it's trailed me, up to the present moment. And we have to work on those things and develop that awareness. So the question you're saying is like, how does awareness affect a relationship? You, any of us has to be self-aware enough to say, I am me, I have my stuff, she is her, she has her stuff, and the healthy me can help the maybe the hurting part of you, and vice versa. The healthy you can help the hurting part
Yeah.
of me.
Yeah.
But if we're both sitting in hurt, or one person just whatever, if you just sit there in your unhealed hurt state or immature state, then there's no way you can go on that mission together. There's no way you can help the other person. Certainly in a time of conflict, when you're both sort of the reactive neurons are
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Did y'all get that?
happening.
Oh, thank you so much. Someone put in here, no, they haven't asked themselves that question. So, y'all, that's the question I want to encourage you to ask yourself. What's going on here? When you have an interaction and you are feeling like a rumble in your spirit, there's a rumble. Because it's easy to go, it's easy for me. I'm a fighter, right? It's easy. I've been fighting all my life. But one of the things that I've learned is I don't have to. I don't have to fight. There's some things you stand up for
Yeah.
yourself, and something you're like, that's not something I need to be entertaining, right? Because of what it's going to do to you. So reacting is not healthy, but responding is. And I appreciate what you're sharing is because when you are aware of you, you can do that proper responding.
Hmm.
You also, when you're aware of you, when you ask yourself that question, what is happening here? Because you feel it way before anybody else will feel it. Because it's your internal mechanism. Like sometimes we can fake that stuff. Like we can be mad and we can fake that stuff. Some people can do that.
Yeah.
Some people can't because it's all over their face. But when you feel a rumble and tumble in your spirit, ask yourself that question, what's going on here? Like for you to take the time to be with you, to commit to yourself in that moment. That's a great time to commit to yourself. Whoa, something's going on here. What am I going to do with that? And a lot of times it's like shrapnel on other people
Hmm.
when it doesn't have to be. Because if you start working through your process of what you're committing to yourself, of how you want to be in a relationship, I know for me, I wanted to be a great wife in this relationship. I wanted to be a great friend
Hmm.
in this relationship. When we had kids, I wanted to be a great mother in this relationship. I wanted to be a great supporter, a great helper,
Hmm.
a great fan, somebody those are things that I wanted for myself. It's not something you told me when we got married or when we were dating. It's something I wanted for myself. And so as you guys are watching, think about that question of what's going on here when there's a rumble and tumble, and going back to what have you committed to yourself for in a relationship? What did you sign up for? What did you want to be? And I believe for me, what I've discovered, and this is something in our marriage, is that where my husband is at, or vice versa, where I'm at, that's not his responsibility where I'm at. It's not. Okay. It's not my responsibility where he's at. And I think that sometimes in a relationship we get that, especially in a marriage. Let me just speak on marriage real quick. Especially in a marriage, we get to so intertwined and all tangled up that we go, well, the reason it's his fault, the reason I feel the way I'm, because he's not doing what he's supposed to do. And I've been doing this and I've been by his side and da, da, da. We can, we can go on and on and on with a resume of a whole bunch of stuff. But at the end of the day, And for those of you who don't know, if you don't know and you're watching and you're new to us, we are faithful soul our disciples of
Yep.
Jesus. And so that really, to be honest, is what makes us work.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
would have some trouble,
Yes.
real trouble,
Yeah.
if we did not put God first, if we did not cling to Him, because He's source. See, everything else is resource, and John and I know where the source is. So, but going back to what I was sharing, the commitment that we make to ourselves of how we want to show up in a relationship has to stay present, no matter what's going on. If John changes, I don't change because he's not doing what he's supposed to do, and vice versa. I can't get on the bandwagon of stuff that's not right. And we're
Yeah.
both guilty of doing things that have not been right in this marriage. We're gonna go ahead and just turn ourselves in and say that right off. And some of our friends, y'all already know. Y'all already know. But it's a journey in marriage. When you're committed
Yes.
in a relationship, is a journey of discovery. And that's the next part I want to talk about. Just discovery is like we talked about, like being aware of ourselves, choosing what we how we want to show up in a relationship, but also, basically discovering, taking the time out. Like, I think that this pandemic, I've really discovered a lot, like in our relationship, like, oh wow, now I understand. Hmm. And yeah, I'm sad to say this because I've had a lot of immaturity, but wow, I did not know this really hurts him like this, or I didn't really know me saying this word all the time is so it hurts. Not that I'm trying to be hurtful, but maybe saying something that hasn't been helpful, but not even really knowing that it had that kind of impact. And so if you are discovering things in relationships, it actually helps you to kind of create that rhythm of staying in your commitment zone of what you signed up for versus just, I'm kind of sick of the way he's behaving, or you may be kind of sick of something that I've done. Discovery is powerful. And so I want to talk about that a little
Yeah.
bit. Like, do you feel like in our relationship in these past couple of years, especially with the pandemic, like what would you say you've discovered that's different that has helped you with your commitment in the relationship?
Well, I mean, I made a self. I knew it, but my self discovery, or maybe just coming to terms with it, is that I withhold a lot from
Mm,
you. I withhold of myself. I hold with so it's deceptive. I'll be honest, it's deceptive when I have thoughts and feelings that I'm afraid to deal with, right? Or if I think you're not going to like something that I'm doing, or you're not going to be interested, or you're not going to agree with me, I would tend to like compartmentalize. I'm like, okay, well, that's
mm,
my ideas over here, and I'll just do what I want, or I'll talk to somebody else about it, or whatnot, right? And
yeah.
I'm shutting off for fear of conflict instead of just being honest and saying, well, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I think about certain things, and there's no rule of marriage that says thou shalt agree on every point of everything all the
Mm,
time perfectly, right? There's nothing that requires that. But discovery is a process of learning along the way.
mm,
And if you're committed with going along with somebody, you're going to discover that they're going to have differences from you. Some things you agree on, some things you don't, some things you work towards, right? In that discovery process. So I think probably for me, my discovery was in and of myself saying, I can't put on a front, right? I can't go about having a marriage in which I avoid conflict at all costs, right?
mm,
Or try to, right? Because it just keeps blowing up in my face. Yes, there are certain things that maybe I just, if I have habits or things that I do that are not constructive, or don't help in the marriage, well, okay, then I can modify those us. That's fine. But at the same time, I have to stop being insincere and fake, because that's just deception, and deception is nothing more than a nice word for lying. To be perfectly honest. So
Thank you.
that's what it is. And then you're welcome. So the other thing in terms of discovery,
I'm thanking you for being honest.
oh,
I like
okay, you're welcome.
that.
Discovery in like so that was an internal thing. The
Mm,
external thing is like, for me, actually paying more attention to what is of interest to you and the things that you like, and learning to embrace them even if they're not my flow, right? Or
yeah.
not my thing. Like, I'm not a fashion type of guy by nature. Uh, but I know that that is something that really does energize you.
Yeah.
You like that. So I'm like, okay, this is something that I can learn to appreciate because it matters to someone whom I love. It matters to
Mm.
my wife. And so even though I probably won't ever, be writing articles for Vogue, I can I can still go along with it, and I can still get my head in the game, right? Get my heart, say, okay, it's not all about me and what I want to do. There are times when, hey, we're gonna be going and spending hours at H&M going up 3 floors. Okay, that's fine.
You are funny. Thanks for sharing that, babe. Just about your discoveries. I really, really appreciate that. I think there's been a lot that I've discovered about myself.
Uh-huh.
And in the essence of relationship, y'all, I want to just kind of bullet point what John shared in a sense of there has to be a self discovery in the relationship for yourself personally. And then there's a discovery in the relationship together, like for the other person. And so I would say for me, what I discovered is, which, I'm like saddened to say, is that I discovered that I perceive rather than receive. And so this happens in close relationships. It's not so much as people that are new, people that I come in contact with at the grocery store or on a job assignment that I'm doing. It's with family. So what I mean by that is that because when you're around your family and you have the people that are close to you, you've probably known them the longest, right? And so I think I've had an expectation over those people that I know the longest. So what I'll do is I've perceived like, oh, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I knew he would do that, like in our relationship, or I knew he wouldn't put this back like I asked him to put back. I almost perceiving your next move because I think I know you so well. And in relationships, you're always discovering. So if I arrive to the point where I know you already,
Mm-hmm.
I don't learn anything new.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what is happening is what I would do is I perceive what you were going to do next instead of being on discovery mode, like learning what would you do instead of perceiving what you would do. And in essence, when I perceive what's a person's next move or how a person is, or that person's just like that, that's just who they are. I'm not going to even give any energy to it because when you do that, you don't receive people,
As
if that
they
makes
are.
sense, as they are. So what I discovered about myself is that there was a lack of welcoming close people, my family members, my children, you into the space of receiving you as you are because I felt like you guys knew better and you should be. And that's another thing I want to share real quick. Sidebar: should be is not. That's a don't.
Should
Should
be is
be.
not good be.
It's a don't. And more it could be instead of
Mm-hmm.
it should be because should be puts a demand on
Yeah.
something that shouldn't be there because nobody wants to be demanded upon. But I definitely did a lot of perceiving versus receiving. And I think
Mhm.
what I've learned and God has helped me with is to really take a step back and assess the situation so that I can respond to it, so I can come with and
Mhm.
be in the commitment with you all to receive you. So I shifted a little bit
Mhm.
to start, okay, let me receive this person. This kid is crying, and I don't know why this kid is crying because there's nothing that's
Mhm.
happened. But just reshifting my mindset. I think I've done a lot of mindset reshifting
Mhm.
so that I could actually receive people.
Well, can I make a comment on that?
Go
Because
for it.
there's another skill that I learned in programming, and it's called cope ahead.
Mm,
And I think it touches on what you're describing. And I do this intentionally, cope ahead. And so it's when you talk about perceive as opposed to receive, what you're basically sort of putting a judgment in. You're like, oh, it's got to,
perceive is judgment.
I'm perceiving that he's not going to do the right thing. Or he's
Yeah.
going to do something that bugs me instead of receiving the other way around. Well, cope ahead would look like this. All right. Well, I know that my wife is going to, traditionally, if something happens, she's going to respond in a certain way, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you've been around somebody long enough, you know the things that lighten them up, you know the
Yeah.
things that poke their buttons. So if you're aware and you're paying attention to your own stuff inside and you're learning and discovering the other person, you can cope ahead, meaning like, all right, if this happens, she's likely to, you know, have a reaction or a response in this way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, since I have prepared myself, I have two choices. I can either value, judge you, and perceive you, or I can simply receive you as you are, understanding that you have your stuff
Mm-hmm.
and it's not mine, and I don't have to react to it negatively. So you can actually learn a process of slowing yourself down. Like, okay, what's going to happen, but not catastrophizing. Right? Oh, it's going to be horrible.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Just logically, right? Sort of in a disaffected or unemotional manner. What is likely to happen? And if that does happen, how am I going to behave? Am I going to jump into it? Am I going to jump into the negativity, or am I going to like leave space and let you or whoever I'm dealing with have their own moment and deal with their own thing?
Yeah. I agree
Yeah.
with that. 100. I agree with that. Yeah. I like the cope ahead. That's kind of
Mhm.
cool. I really, really do believe that that was a shift for me to really grasp that,
Mhm.
you're perceiving folk instead of receiving. And I think remember we did a devotional about receiving a while back, just really like embracing who a person is and how they are. And so one of the things that I wanted to just express too is that, God gave us emotions. Like he built us with emotions. So to not allow a person to be who they are,
Yeah.
experience who they are, it's not cool. It's not right to perceive them rather than receiving them. So the don't is do not perceive people, receive
Receive
people.
people.
I want to hit these comments a little bit because there's a few people on here that have said some things. Thank you guys so much for commenting. Now, if you're on the nitty grit page, on the main page, I can see your comments, but if you're on the nitty grit girl or you're on YouTube right now, I can't see your comments. So I'll catch those later and
Mhm.
respond to those for y'all. But someone put on here, oh, hey, Juice, I'm in Atlanta. Want to say I love y'all and hope you and I love you guys, and you guys always are an example of how to have and be a family through good and bad times. Thank you so much,
Good. Thank
Lamar.
you.
We appreciate that. Oh, oh my gosh, Tracy's on here. Hi, Tracy.
Mhm.
She says, "Hey guys, hey girl."
Way back time machine right there.
Wow, that's old school right
Yep.
there. Thanks for being on. I appreciate you. Lamar put, I needed to hear that. Um, Gigi put no. Thank you, Gigi, for just putting yourself on the front line with that. And Mama put a thumbs up and she said, hey, let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Let's get down.
Thank you guys so much for coming. And I really appreciate y'all watching. John and I really wanted to just do this because we felt the need to just kind of like put our relationship out there in hopes that It will help some people to feel like, no, you're not alone, that everybody goes through some stuff. And also on the other flip side of it is that these things we're talking about, they're not just for marriage. They're for any relationship, period. If you can think about your commitment to yourself of how you want to be in a relationship, it's going to help you in any relationship, whether it's parent, daughter, husband, wife, co-worker, or friend. It will help you in any relationship. If you stop and evaluate yourself and say, hey, what's going on when you feel like energy that's not positive for you? Because nobody wants to be negative. Nobody, I don't believe that anyone wants to wake up going, oh, I'm just going to act a fool today and I'm just going to go out there and blast some people. Nobody wakes up like that. We have these different interactions and experiences, and we either react or respond to them. So these, what we're talking about, this could help you in any relationship. Don't react, respond. Take the time to think through what just happened for you. Evaluate your own self. And then lastly, just discovery. If you all would take the time to just discover something new about a relationship that you're in, one for yourself, discovering how you are interacting in that relationship, and the other flip side of what's going on in that for that person. If you could discover something like, oh, this person is getting up late every day, or this person is sleeping every day, something could be going on for that person. If it would make sense to pay attention to any relationship you're in. So I just want to give you guys that we both have been on this journey of really discovering more and more, because we really believe that we've never arrived in any relationship and we're always growing, because we're 25 years in our marriage, but I want to get to 26, 27, 28. If I'm not on the discovery journey and learning, then chances of that we'll be looking at each other going, oh, we want out. We want out. And that happens a lot. And y'all know it. Y'all know it. It happens a lot. It happens all the time where people just go, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. Or even in relationships with parenting relationships, there's a lot of parenting relationships that's crazy right now. A lot of relationships are having turmoil. And we wanted to really just try to help as much as we can. How can we help? Let's share our story. Let's share what we're going through. And this is the way we could offer ourselves to the world. So I know that I wanted to leave everybody with a scripture, because I wanted to share, because as I mentioned previously, what makes us work is really just plugging into our source, contacting God, inquiring to Him, praying together, and really going back to, after that, all the tips that we just talked about tonight. So if you could share that with them, I would be so grateful.
Okay, so this is Psalm 18, verse 2. And it says, the Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield, the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. So now, when we know this, sort of the definition of commitment is going with. And when we think with us, or if we're going with God, think about all of these powerful things, along the journey: a fortress, a deliverer, a rock, a shield, a salvation, right? So there's we know that life has a lot of battles. It has a lot of conflict. It has a lot of pain and problems along the way. So when you're going along with somebody, wouldn't you want someone to be there to support you, to shield you, to strengthen you, to provide some refuge? And that's the way God is. So we can look at this and say, well, let me imitate. Let me try to be a sort of a human form as best as I can, relying on God for my spouse or my friend or whoever I'm committed to.
I like that. Beautiful. Thank you, babe.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You guys, well, that's our time. We hope that you guys have learned something new. We hope that we've helped and encouraged you in some way, because y'all, we know it ain't no joke. Relationships ain't no joke. But if you want to have one, you'll have to do the work for yourself individually. You know, if John and I were not together, I would still have to do the work for me. I would still have to evaluate. I would still have to discover things about me. I would still have to work on me. God has blessed us. We're together, so we get to be partners in this thing together. But always know that the best relationship you can have starts with yourself first. And then you actually are able to go out and connect with everybody else. Right? So I hope this helps. Did you have any last words?
I just want to go to your website, look at all
Ah,
your great stuff there,
thank
sign
you.
up for your class, and look at all the great merchandise, the inspiration, and so forth. And what is the website?
Oh, so Babe is always plugging me because y'all that are watching, I am just a firm believer. I'm trying to inspire people and help people in any way that I can. So my website is www.chanteldenise.com. You can check out what I'm doing. I'm going to have some classes coming up, and yeah, John and I will be back here next week. We're going to do this thing 4 weeks in a row. Okay, 4 weeks of talking about different subjects in relationships. So tonight you have heard us talk about commitment. Next week it'll be something else. We're going to give you the 4 C's that we actually learned from your mother, which was passed on from
My
your grandmother. So we're going to talk about the 4 C's. We ain't going to tell y'all what the next one is, so you have to tune in. Got the first one. Commitment, come with. Remember to come with in your relationships. All right, y'all. Thank you for being on here. We appreciate y'all so much. We appreciate you. Have a great weekend because you can. See y'all. Thank you.